All right, so not 100% sure if I'm doing this right, but this is my power posture assignment. I decided to read an article on recovery drinks. Well, that was my original search. It eventually led to one specific to water polo players, which is kind of cool because that's what I play at GV. But specifically with tart cherry juice, which I found rather unique and very interesting. So the researchers were curious if tart cherry juice, as it is high in a lot of very good things for the body, but essentially anti-inflammatories, which they were hoping would lead to faster recovery times. And this test had been done on athletes that were on dry land, specifically endurance athletes, and it was seen that there was no significant increase in their recovery speed. Um, Both on the individual, they were required to like kind of write about it, have a daily diary, and then also via blood samples. But they decided, hey, maybe it's a little different in aquatic athletes. They specifically chose a water polo team. It consisted of 9 individuals, just because that made it a little more consistent across the board. But they were very specific in their wording that it was for aquatic athletes in general. But yeah, tart cherry juice, it contained a large amount of phytochemicals and anthocyanin, which, like I said, a lot of anti-inflammatory, a lot of stuff to help the body recover faster and kind of counterbalance some of the things that our body produces during exercise. So that was their question. The method, they were very specific, very clear, randomized, double-blind, repeated, crossover, placebo. There was, like I said, there was 9 individuals. They all were from the same water polo team. Um, so the individuals were split into 2 groups, is how I understood it. One of the groups received a placebo, while the other group received the actual tart cherry juice. This kind of gave us a control group, essentially. Nobody knew what was going on. Not the people that were giving the juice out and the people receiving. It was very randomized. Nothing, no particular person was chosen or denied one of the groups, and it was repeated time and time again. They said that it was over, I believe, as a week long, and like at the end of day 6, they were taking blood samples, and then they'd come back in after having taken that juice. And then on day 7, they'd take more blood samples and they'd compare the two. They'd be like, all right, so what has changed? A couple things that they did specify in terms of the blood samples that were important to look at were the interleukin 6, C reactive protein, which both of these are inflammatory agents which occur after or post workout, specifically when it is something that is very intense. And then uric acid and F2 isoprostane, which are also kind of the same thing there. I think these are more waste agents and less of inflammatory agents. But these were the 4 things that they were measuring via the blood sample. And yet again, in this study, they did do a daily diary in order to, like, ask the athletes, all right, so, like, how are your muscles feeling? Are you sore today? Are you more sore today than you were 2 days ago? In order to stimulate a max exertion idea or run through, the team actually played a drill that was supposedly equal to or some sort of equivalent to playing an actual game in terms of intensity. And it was held for, as far as I know, the full time. So it was very much something where the athletes could very well be sore the next day and would need some sort of recovery. But the daily diaries were like very much like qualitative, like how do you feel kind of stuff, whereas the blood samples, the quantitative stuff that they were looking at. Now, if you come to the results and interpretation, they did only have one graph for it, and it is in, I don't remember the language, but it's in another language, as Australia, like New Zealand, is where this test was done. But in the long run, nothing really changed. Matter of fact, a couple of the variables actually increased, which would make sense, which shows that the tart cherry juice did not have any effect, if at all, very little, on the agents, the inflammatory agents that they were looking at specifically via blood samples. They also did state that many of the diaries read that, yeah, it's, I'm as sore as I would have expected. Like, there wasn't any change with the placebo or without the placebo or with the tart cherry juice. It was very even across the board. Things that were supposed to increase because of exercise increased, and things that were supposed to decrease because of exercise decreased. So waste agents all went up. The inflammatory agents also went up. It was very much seen that tart cherry juice did not increase recovery speed. Now, as for like the new use side of things, and or why is this question important kind of deal, people are always looking for a new recovery drink or a new recovery food in general for athletes to have after a game, after a practice, in order to help that recovery process along. As human beings, as we train specifically for a sport, it's very important that recovery is like the thing that's constantly allowing us to continue to move forward. And if that recovery time can be shortened by any means, you're going to see athletes excel faster and faster and faster. I mean, for years we've had chocolate milk as like the go-to after aquatic events. That's something in particular. I've been swimming and playing water polo for a long time, so I'm very, very used to that. So, like I said, this is very interesting for me. So, is this the new recovery drink for water athletes? No, unfortunately. It sounds very cool, and I had kind of hoped that it would as I was reading, but the data just doesn't support that claim. And why is this important? It's furthering our knowledge for recovery drinks and in food and food in general. It's very, like I said, it's very important to have that recovery period be as smooth as possible, and if it can be a little bit shorter, that's really good. And helps the athletes out a lot. So it was in hope that this would possibly be that. Where can we go from here, however? I believe that this is just opening the door for many other things to be tried in terms of recovery drinks and recovery food altogether. Tart cherry juice is something that not a lot of people would consider anywhere near that, and I think it's kind of cool that they chose that. But maybe choosing something new in the future is definitely a way to go about it. And how can I use it personally, like in the career I'm going into? Well, I know that if my athletes ask, hey, what's the best recovery drink I can have after any sort of aquatic event, via this study right here, it's not tart cherry juice, unless you're just there to enjoy it. Here on the last one, this is the source cited in APA. But yeah, that is the article I decided to research. Thank you for listening.